it all comes back to, we had this conversation with the corridor commander of FRSC around us here, Mr. Husseini Hamzat or something like that. And when we took him up on the issue of his men, you know, also being culpable, he said if we have any proof, we should bring any one of them out. We should bring the proof out, and he will not only make sure that they get reprimanded, it could cost them their jobs. And he said I should ask about him. He doesn't take nonsense. Yes, I hear you. But the moment I left the studio that day, his men were on the roads. Oga, see what you said. See what I just saw. He said, don't worry. I told him the number plate of the truck, and he said, don't worry. And he called me back after some time. He said he has moved them. That if I had proof of them collecting money, their penalties would have been stiffer. And so that's what I would want to say to you, guys watching us now. If you have any proof of any official of government, because the allegation was that not just all security operatives, all of them, you know, were culpable in this, collecting money for people to go against traffic. If you found any such on the road, please do us, yourself and us, every road user, a favor, whichever part of the country it is. Well, now that this second mainland bridge is, second Niger bridge is active now, let's know what the experience has been using that road now. At least if there's anything that needs to be improved, let's know what your reaction is, if government has done fairly well on it. But on this particular, if you know anyone who is milking Nigerians by encouraging us to break the law when they're supposed to be enforcing the law, do a video recording if you can and send it out. Tag them. Tag their officers. Tag FRSC, tag the police, tag the Nigerian army, tag whichever agency of government you think it is. Tag LASTMA, tag the one in Kano, tag any one of them, embarrass them, call them out. We will notice these things and we'll call them out as well with you, because building Nigeria is not something that's only one person or group of people will do. It's all of our common responsibility. And I'm sure that this will actually curb this malfeasance, should I call it? Yeah. Because when they see their faces on social media, I hope that they will be ashamed and embarrassed enough to stop that particular action. Which security agent wants to lose his job because of 200 naira, 300 naira? Because there are no jobs. Come on. Even those that have jobs cannot get home with the pay that they take. With the pay that they take. And now we're talking about not just minimum wage, we're talking about living wage. We'll get to that. Don't even go there. Yes, yes, yes. And the electricity tariff that's about to go up next week, July 1. 40% increase, and this is on top of Nigerians struggling with coping with the removal of fuel subsidy, which means, in fact, we hear that fuel may even go up. Isn't that what we're hearing? Well, the price of fuel may even go up more. So long as we are importing fuel, the vagaries of the market is going to play out. I mean, for instance, just a week or two ago, the dollar was just about 660 or thereabout. And yesterday, what's his name? Chizie told us that it sold for 815. 815 yesterday. So the vagaries of the market are going to... But for as long as we continue to import, the volume of our imports will determine the vagaries of that market. So the more we produce at home, the better it hopefully will get. Talking about importing, I had Emmanuel Igbini saying yesterday that the refineries can actually work, that it is the Nigerian factor again. Those are not his words, by the way, but that was the long and short of what he was saying, that is making those refineries not work. And he challenged TUC president to tell his members to go and start those refineries. You know, I was one of the questions that I asked him before. Look, your members are as culpable in the working or non-working, because you know you guys are even the senior staff. Yes, the senior staff those are the Pengasan folks. And the answer he gave at the time was, look, it goes back to the bosses. That if the bosses don't allow these things to work, then they will not work. But I think it's now his word against that of Mr. Igbini yesterday. saying, look, you guys can make these things work. And I'm saying, look, you guys spend money even though the thing is not working. So they have to continue to maintain the engine, at least run it on a daily basis, like warming the engine of your car that you're not using every day. Oh, yes. Because it will be
run it.
Yes.
Even though it's not producing 1 single liter of fuel.
So it doesn't collapse totally. The same thing is happening at Ajaokuta steel rolling mills. That the machine has to be, run. We have to warm the engine, so to speak, from time to time. I don't know how these things work, but hey, it's all back to us. If we want these things to work, just take, there are 37 trillion cells in the human body. 37 trillion cells. So just imagine that certain cells in the body, maybe the cells in the hand, refuse to work. I mean, come on. So that's just the same thing that is happening right here. So if one element of the society refuses to work, it affects the entire engine of the society.
Indeed.
And so I hope we'll all be able to find, some solace in that.
Still on energy. I heard on the news during the week that the price of gas, in quotes, crashed. So I went to buy gas yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was expecting the crash.
Yeah.
To be evidenced in the price I was going to pay. Gas only went down from 9,300 to 8,600.
So it crashed by how much?
700 naira.
Well, it's a crash. It's just not one that will give you wound. It's a crash.
The word was crash, and I was expecting, okay, it's gone up by 2,000 naira.
No, see, the thing is, I think it also depends,
on where you're buying.
On where you're buying, on the chain of the value chain of the person selling to you. From
where does he get his supply from?
Are there 3 or 4 links in between and all those things? Maybe that is part of it, but because
Send
in the
us
news,
an email.
yes.
How much did you buy gas this week? Let us know in your neighborhood. You must let us know where it is that you're buying as well.
Even if it's in Kano.
Thank you.
Or in Zungeru. What's that name? don't even let me try.
Zungeru.
Yes, on Zungeru.
Where Zeke was born.
Sorry?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Menu. What are we talking about today?
The first thing is that living wage matter. The first thing that I did was to Google the definition of living wage. Do it yourselves. And what will it come to? That's what we'll be talking about. So that's our first topic.
And then we'll focus on the youths and innovation. Remember Bill Gates? I don't know if he's still around, but he was around in the course of the week, and he had some meetings with young people and discussed all kinds of things with them. We'll be looking at what that was all about and what the youths are thinking regarding, because there's no more I beg to apply. There are no jobs for them when they beg to apply.
You can just create your own apply.
Thank you.
Of course, the next one is Aliko Dangote Foundation Impacts. Of course, there's some kind of connection because you remember that Alhaji Dangote was part of the facilitation for bringing Bill Gates, around and all of that. But so, yeah, what's that about? We'll find out later.
And then after that, on our lifestyle segment, we're going to be looking at gut health. What's that?
Yes.
Your gut needs to be healthy as well. Otherwise,
just add...
Dash.
That gut, just add TER to it. Then you give you an idea.
When your gut isn't healthy, it becomes like a gutter.
I didn't say that.
Ouch.
I'm innocent. You just said that.
Ouch.
We're going to close with the artist of the week this morning. And there is no contention. He is a he. Yes.
Well.
No. There are no pronouns for him.
A video made the rounds in the course of the week. I don't know if you saw it. Somebody had a housemaid who had boobs and everything, and they caught it doing nasty things, and they stripped it naked. And it was a, woman from the waist up and a man from the waist down.
What?
Yeah.
Is it in Lagos, Nigeria?
In Nigeria.
Jeez.
And it was employed as a house girl. So
get your cup of cocoa.
or cocoa, as the case may be.
I have.
In the Nigeria I shall have the honor and privilege to lead from May 29th, workers will have more than a minimum wage. You will have a living wage to have a decent life and provide for your families. No marks for guessing who said that. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he was still the president-elect on May 1, 2023. He actually said those words. Currently, we operate the national minimum wage structure, and the current minimum wage is 30,000 naira for federal and states, and this was approved in 2019 following the passage of the minimum wage bill by the National Assembly. To look at this matter of a living wage with us this morning, it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Tokwe Fashua, an economist who joins us from our studio in Abuja. Good morning, Dr. Fashua. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, madam.
And via Zoom, we have the head, Department of Sociology, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Dr. Mohammed Bashir Abubakar. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us. And we also have the Executive Director, Nigerian Network of NGOs, Mr. Oluseyi Oyebisi. Good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Let me start with you, Dr. Fashua. The president has promised a living wage so that Nigerians can have a decent life and provide for their families. So the labor unions, they have been up in arms, understandably, since the subsidy was removed. And one of the things they're talking about is this matter of minimum wage. And in their proposal, I think the figure they have down is 200,000 naira. What are your thoughts about a living wage for Nigerians?
Thank you very much. So when you talk about living wage, it's more comprehensive. It takes a few more factors. For example, you want to say that on behalf of Nigerians, you will also try and hold down inflation so that whatever it is they're earning will not be eroded. Because like they say, some people say, my pay does not even, my take-home pay does not take me home. Maybe meaning that it probably ends in the bus stop, near the office and so on. So to pay, it's a very, very great ideal to tell Nigerians that, look, I want to pay you guys a living wage, Now, that means that even the lowest earning person will be able to survive and, survive adequately well, which is great, So it's something that we should hold the president to his words and also wait for him to roll out the raft of initiatives that will make the lives of Nigerians easier. I've been hammering on lately about the need for inflation management beyond just increasing interest rate. The only thing we've ever done of late in terms of trying to force down inflation is to increase interest rate, which has got up to 18.5%, the monetary policy reference rate, meaning that lending rates in bank will probably start from about 24, 25% for companies, the large companies who can twist the banks. But for normal companies, you probably will be seeing 35%, and in some instances, 40, 45%. Take it or leave it. And no company can survive at that level, meaning that the rise of interest rate is also curbing productivity and economic growth at that level. So it's good. We are going to hold the president to it. It's going to take a lot more, even beyond merely paying salaries as well, in order to pay a living wage, meaning that the cost of moving around, the cost of living in general, must be held down somehow for the people, maybe by provision of more infrastructure in the economy and so on and so forth. However, I must say that the request for 200,000 minimum wage is alarming. It's really alarming. And if you do that, it's going to spur further inflation and make everybody get worse.
We'll get to what you would consider reasonable minimum wage in a bit, but let's also take the perspectives of our other guests. Dr. Abubakar, thank you again for joining us this morning. In the light of what the president said on the 1st of May, which was Workers' Day, by the way, promising living wage, there's those who are probably hearing that for the very first time in their lives, you know, living wage as opposed to minimum wage. Your thoughts on that, particularly in the light of the realities of the generality of our people, and in the light of the alarming poverty figures from that data of last year?
Thank you again for having me. When you mention living rate, this simply means someone can go to work comfortably and work and come down home without too much stress. Not only what we fail, our leaders or policy makers fail to understand is that most Nigerians are not civil servants. There were poverty alleviation programs that were social in nature, but unfortunately, their own implementation is a serious problem. Now, like the labor leaders said, 200,000. Everybody knows it's outrageous, but they must measure that for someone to be in work. I was discussing with one of the junior staff in my department. When he told me where he lives, I realized that 100,000 at this particular time will not take him home and live in a decent, let's just say decent life. Yeah. Because no, comfortability is a relative term. We rather use decent living. And I now realize that 100,000 will not take him home, will not allow him to live decently. So I think there should be a total overhaul of method of alleviating poverty in a social way to reduce poverty rate generally. That's the aim of the poverty alleviation program, where you alleviate poverty. But salary mustn't be so high as they mentioned, because they knew there are too much. We have a lot of burdens as civil servant, and they knew until and unless you pay that 200,000, they can't cater for other ones. But if others benefit from other social networks, social poverty alleviation programs, and I'm sure with little money, people can live decently.
Well, let me ask you this, Dr. Abubakar, before I go to Mr. Yebisi. What kind of partnership? Because it will not be realistic to even consider this whole wage adjustment, let me call it that for the benefit of this conversation, without the buy-in of the state governors. Now, there are a good number of the states that are said to be unable to even pay salaries in the first place. They themselves are literally struggling to live. They're struggling to pay salaries of 18,000, which will increase to 30,000, even though some states have even increased it to 40,000 and the rest of them. So in terms of the kind of conversation that the federal government should be having with the states, what are the things that you would want considered by the federal government before this proposition is even made a reality in the first place?
No, I agree with you. There are some states may likely cannot pay that such amount of money. But the major problem of these is corruption. If the federal government will stand still and make sure corruption is eradicated to a very good level, then I'm sure these things will go a long way. And again, like I told you earlier, it's not the bogus amount of money that matters, but how is the poverty level within this country? You are aware that Nigeria is regarded as what is it called, poverty. The level of poverty in Nigeria has gone so high that it's even considered as threshold. What is it called? I was listening to news one certain time where about 12% of the world population in extreme poverty live in Nigeria. So reduce poverty generally.
Okay.
There were a lot of poverty programs in Nigeria since the era of Obasanjo when he was military governor, military president, down to the present cash transfer. All of them are not done as it's supposed to be. And if it is done as it's supposed to be, you don't cast or agitate for too much salary because, like the first speaker said, it brings a lot of inflation. At the end of the day, the salary will not be beneficial to everyone.
Okay. Mr. Oyebisi, what a human being needs money for? He needs money. The major things are to cover his housing, his feeding, his transportation for those who go to work. Do you think that putting money into their hands is better than trying to look at ways of helping them, go around these problems and solve these problems so that they will not be problems to them?
We need to balance the narrative and set this within the right context. Society agrees that when I want to earn, I must work. All right. And if I do work, I must be able to provide for my shelter, water, food, transport, and childcare for those that would have children. So by the time I work, there has to be a wage that would allow me to have decent living, like Dr. Bashir said. We do also understand that government provides employment, the private sector provides employment, and the informal sector also provides employment, which would be work in layman's language. Now, when you look at the economy as we have it, we all transact within this economy. The 200,000 that has been hacked by labor, if we put it on the cost of living analysis, then as at 2022, the calculation was that you need about 191,900 naira. This is a global anchor methodology that was used to calculate this. That's what you need as at 2022. All right, as someone that has woken up in the morning to say, I am going to work, not to steal, not to harm society. I'm going to work. And when I come back, I should be able to earn a decent living wage. So this takes us to the conversation around, is the 200 outrageous? Maybe yes, maybe no. We'll look at it within the context of our economy and our realities. Then take this back to the conversations around who can pay and who can't pay. And what will be the catalytic effect of such amount of money? Okay, but understand also that our economy is also driven by wages. In some states, we call them civil service states. All right, you can't move the economy without money circulating from civil servants. They pay their rent, they pay school fee, they buy sachet water. They go to the car wash to wash their cars, and that's how they've been able to use that money to run the economy. All right. Of course, going to Dr. Fasua's conversation around inflation, you now have to think about that as well. Because the moment you have that 200,000 naira as the living wage, we're not even saying it's minimum wage anymore, it's the living wage, then the man or the woman in the local market increases the price of food. Your landlord also says, now you guys are earning more, they increase house rent. So how do we bring some level of price control into the conversation? How do we also have social protection systems for those that do not have employment? And that's where, one is grateful that we now have the social investment law recently passed. How do we implement it such that those that would not be able to afford this decent living that we're talking about, they can also, benefit from such systems that Dr. Bashir is talking about, the poverty alleviation bit. We must also now start thinking, and this is going to be a long journey. The conversation between labor, businesses, and government must now start, and it's good. Let's also commend President Tinubu for starting that, to say, yes, it will now be living wage. And I do hope that government now understands what living wage means. Because if we're going to do that true calculation, then maybe it's even more than 200,000 naira. But we now have to start thinking about the effect of such amount of money on inflation, also on whether or not we're able to pay at the state level. And also whether businesses, and taking this back to what Dr. Fasua said around interest rates, would small businesses, would medium-sized businesses, would large businesses be able to pay this amount of money without retrenching or without increasing the cost of their products as well? So these are the conversations we need to start having. But is the 200,000 naira a good way to start? I do think it's a good way to start.
Okay, Dr. Fashra, you spoke about inflation earlier. Of course, we all remember Udoji and all that. In those, as soon as you increase salaries, prices just tend to shoot up. And then inflation chews all the money that you've just been given. So should we not concentrate, therefore, on giving what I call social safety nets to workers, so that it's not just about giving them money, because when you give them money, inflation takes it all up. You help them with their housing, you help them with their health care and stuff like that. Should we not concentrate more on those?
Well, everything has to make it to the table, like Mr. Yebisi said. Everything. Look, running a country and achieving development is not an easy affair. It's a very complex affair, and everybody must chip in and speak up. If Labour is asking for 200,000, in fact, what they're asking for is not the living wage, they're asking for minimum, which begins to scare people like us who are entrepreneurs on the streets.
Yep.
Can we afford 200,000 for maybe our cleaner who's... In fact, this last week we heard that GT Bank, had to double the salaries of their people, and for the first, they used to pay cleaners 35,000. I was shocked. Drivers 70,000, 60,000. I was shocked. But it's a good impetus. What they've done is in reaction to the fuel deregulation, if you like. So there are 41 million MSMEs in this country, micro, small, and medium enterprises, according to the SMEDAN. Meaning, and most of those 41 million, 99% of them are micro businesses, one-man businesses, two-man, three-man businesses, people who are just hustling around and so on. Maybe people who have, some of them have registered their business name, some have not, 41 million. And that's where most of the employment is, because we're still largely an informal economy. How do they get to that level? If the rest of us, my worry about the 200,000 is that, Labour is basically saying, being that most of the people who are driving this are civil servants, one way or the other, either civil or public servants, these guys, I understand that the government can print and pay them. But this is how we got here in the first place. 23.7 trillion ways and means in CBN was mostly used to pay salaries for civil servants. But where does that leave the private sector? I was happy when you mentioned Udoji Award. After Udoji Award, we had, then came in 1975, 76, Murtala retrenched a lot of civil servants. He said he wanted to reposition, and a lot of them went on pension. But by 1986, under Babangida, when we started devaluing money, the pension that they were collecting, a lot of them died. A lot of them developed health problems because they found that they couldn't cope. The 1,000 naira, which was erstwhile a good amount of money, became nonsense. And over time, we have seen how inflation has interacted. This is where we are now. Setting the minimum wage at 200,000 is going to ramp up inflation significantly, such that we probably go to the situation where Ghana was before they started running to Nigeria those days, where everybody was a billionaire. You had to earn 10 billion, which was probably maybe $2,000 or something of that sort in order for you to be somebody. So we have to be very careful. Again, it's down to inflation management, and it's down to using every tool that we have. You have to provide the social services. You have to build your infrastructure. So this is a long journey. And so what we want is a workable roadmap from the government that has promised this living wage, and also to manage the scenario on the minimum wage spectrum to say that what exactly can we afford. If you are moving minimum wage from 30 to 60, maybe 100% increase, okay, maybe that could be workable. Mind you the fact that many states are still owing salaries, including local governments, Even some not too strong parastatals are owing salaries, 2 months, 3 months. States are owing 6 months, 7 months. Many cannot even pay the 30,000, and here we are. So we have to be extremely careful because at the end of the day, inflation is known as the worst enemy of man among monetary economists. So to a large extent, whatever it is, if you are kidding yourself, you will pay yourself huge amounts of money. Inflation will come, take it away from. But lastly, I wanted to talk about the most vulnerable amongst us, people who cannot even find jobs, people who are weak, no matter how a society is. And that's the problem I have with orthodoxy, the economic orthodoxy that some people are trying to mainstream in this current government, which is not actually Bola Tinubu's idea. He's a bit left of center, and we want to see more of the left of center ideas. No matter how society is, there'll be people who are weak, maybe mentally, physically, who cannot join this rat race that we're about to embark on. So we cannot just sit down there and say, oh, just keep increasing interest rates, and then anybody that can grabs it and run. At the end of the day, people who cannot even help themselves, they fall to the ground. With what is going on now and all of the barrage of policies that we have seen, even many people are no longer sending money home. I just read an article now, and in some instances, one guy was thinking about, from the north, he lives in Lagos, he's thinking about divorcing one of his wives and sending her back to her family. People are having to do some serious adjustments, living without lights, not bothering to put on the generator in the middle of the night or something like that. So how long can we continue like this? We have to be careful and slow down a little bit on this part.
You mentioned a few things the other time, Dr. Fashua. So let me take the question to Dr. Abubakar. I'm on Investopedia.com now. And Investopedia is talking about the living wage calculator. And it says the things to include in calculating what you would call a living wage includes shelter, food, healthcare, childcare, taxes, transportation, and in some circumstances, the state and town in which you live. How does that measure for you? What kind of conversations? Do you see that as something that we can consider in our country, given the challenge of infrastructure that we have? Dr. Abubakar. I think you're on mute. Please unmute your mic. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for him, I don't know, Mr. ABC, if that is something you can... Can you hear me now?
I'm unmuted, I think now.
Okay,
I can hear you now.
Yes,
Hello?
go ahead. Did you hear the question? Did you get the question?
Are you hearing me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello? Yes.
Okay.
Clear now.
Did you get the question?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
What was the question? You said...
The question that I asked was, Investopedia.com defines, mentions some criteria. Okay, I think there's some noise in your environment there. If you can relocate. So Investopedia is saying that a living wage, that in order to calculate it, you need to determine the cost of shelter, food, healthcare, childcare, taxes, transportation, including the state and town in which you live. Do you see that as something that will help us in coming to a reasonable living wage?
Yeah, usually that is what should be taken into cognizance when you want to calculate the living wage or decent life. You say, like my other speaker is speaking about inflation and so on and so forth. I know quite sure there must be inflation. There will be inflation if all these are calculated. The salary will look uh, a kind of too high to other people's understanding.
Dr.
But
Abubakar, well, the question I'm
sociologists,
trying to
yes,
ask you is, wouldn't that mean that there will be different living wages for different people in the different parts of the country?
yeah, exactly. It is. In most countries in the developed world, you don't have a uniform living rate. You can't expect me living. I'm living in a Sokoto where there are the income and others there. The living standard is low there, and compare it with Port Harcourt or Lagos and so on and so forth, or Abuja to be precise. I was with someone yesterday. He came to Kaduna, and I took him to a hotel of 5,000 naira, and the hotel was okay. He was so surprised. This will never happen, and he don't think there will be this type of hotel in Abuja. And you see, those things have to be into consideration if you want to explain clearly living wage. Yeah, it's a very good thing to put into consideration, because 10,000 in a different society may not take you up to that of a different society. So salary have to be relative.
Okay. Well,
It
let
has
me
to be
ask
relative if you want.
Mr. ABC, that same question, but put in this light. On the one hand, the government is looking at ensuring that we either transit from petroleum, the PMS, to CNG for our vehicles, or for those who may want to, retain PMS as the energy source with which they power their cars. Now, put this living wage conversation per the location, the place where you're, state or town where you are living, in the light of energy costs. What do you see happening in the various states?
So in the light,
go ahead.
In the light of this, again, this is the sense we're getting, and that's why you would hear what we call people moving from one state to another. Okay, because of the ease and cost of living. I don't necessarily have to live in Abuja if I don't have business stay in Abuja. I might come to stay in Oshobo or Ibadan, where cost of living is relatively cheaper. So this is what we'll start getting when we get that sense right as to that calculation, and also seeing how best we can now start adjusting to the realities that we have found ourselves. In Ibadan, cost of fuel is 520, I guess. Maybe in Abuja it's 530. The prices are different. You have to bring that calculation as well, because people must transport themselves to work. And there's the sociology of this. Even if the economics is not right at the moment, let's look at the sociology. I must live somewhere. I can't stay on the street. If I stay on the street, government will send me packing. I'll be called it out. I must feed myself. All right. I must put on clothes. All right. I must, if I have a child or children, I must be able to pay their school fee. All right. That is if they are going to private school. And this again then brings the conversation around what's happening to our public schools. All right. Now, there are some things that we also neglect. School uniforms, they are part of the calculations that you must bring into the conversation. Shoes, all right? And the fact that the child may want to celebrate their birthdays, all of this also comes within the cost of living calculations, all right? Because these are costs to me. Now, when you look at this, then the transportation, whether I'm going by public transport or I'm driving myself, if I need to get buy fuel, plus also issues around energy. Whether again I'm powering my generator or I am using any of the BDCs or PHCN or NEPA, for lack of for us to get the better understanding of this. One of these has to come in, and you have said I must work 8 to 5. All right. So it means that by the time I finish my work for that day, and over the course of 22, 23, 25 working days, I must have that cost that would help me to pay all of these bills in a month. That's the sociology of it. Now, the economics of it is now where the likes of Dr. Fasua will now tell us that when you put too much this kind of money into the economy, this is what the problem would be. Then inflation management comes in. Now, as a businessman or as an employer, I then have the concern to say, what are we producing? That you're now telling me to pay 200,000 naira. How? Then we have to deal with those conversations as well. Now it then comes to those in the informal market or your landlord that would then say, oh, guy, you now earn more. If I do a calculation of your salary, 200 times 12, that's about maybe 3.6 million. My mathematics is bad, but just for the purposes of conversation. Then you must pay this XYZ amount. So even across the states where you expect the living expenses to be low, don't be surprised that rent will then go up and then make that gains or those monies you said you are paying to be a bit also not living wage or decent living anymore, because rent just go up. And once rent goes up, you have to manage food inflation. We are in a country where price control, the moment the market woman hears 200,000, they are saying a model of rice would be whatever, whereas the price may not have increased where they have bought it.
Perhaps,
so these are some of the elements you have to manage.
That might also be suggesting that one ball of tomato will become 500 naira, but God forbid that we'll get to that point. Let me ask Dr. Fasha this one. I just received a message from someone who is looking at this issue the same way you're looking at it. But I was gonna take you up on the kind of infrastructure, soft infrastructure or hard infrastructure that can support a living wage and what it will be. These are some of the points raised. Aggressive pursuit of health insurance for all strata, affordable housing, massive social housing, compensation mechanisms for transportation to reduce impact on fuel subsidy removal. More critically, bring down food-induced inflation and manage inflation overall. Do you see these as sufficient propositions? If you do, what must be done to ensure that these are not only started, but sustained, so that this living wage can actually keep people living?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I do agree with what that person has said. Nigeria is a huge lacuna of all of these things. I was in Kenya about 3 weeks ago. I saw in Nairobi a deliberate attempt at, some sort of housing, public housing system, mostly driven by the private sector. If you went to China, the same thing in there, what they call targeted poverty eradication. The first thing they target is housing for the people. And just this morning now, I made a comment on my Facebook page. Someone was showing Ibadan, where Mr. ABC stays, but some parts of Ibadan, the traditional side, and all these mud houses, with the brown roofs, a lot of them are falling where they stand. We can romanticize it, but the point is they need to be repositioned. We need serious regeneration. We need in fact, there's never been an attempt at public housing in Nigeria, honestly. Jakonde built 29,000 housing units in Lagos. That's perhaps the best we've seen since the beginning of this country. And those houses are middle-class houses, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom flats. We need to move on. We need to do something new with ourselves. So all of those items that have been listed will really help. Think about housing, think about social services, think about health systems, whether health insurance that can capacitate the primary health centers, so that I think they have something like that in Rwanda. Pay a token. Everybody just pays a token, and that allows you to be able to walk to any hospital at any point in time to get some sort of treatment, apart from more complicated cases. So that's it. But I wanted to remind us that, look, the issue still remains. When you look at the sociological aspect, I'm a bit worried whether we're asking our people to become a bit entitled. A minimum wage, meaning that that's what you pay for the least worker amongst us. does it actually have to entitle someone to the best standard of living in terms of health, in terms of housing, in terms of what does it entitle them to? You know, so the sociological aspect is a bit problematic for me, and it's something we need to manage the optics and manage the perception immediately
Dr. Fashua,
to say, okay, this is what we can
Dr.
do.
Fashua,
So that argument between minimum and living wage.
If you can hear me, Dr. Fashua, it sounds to me that Mr. Yebisi probed as a touchy one there. It seems that there is some kind of variance between the sociology and the economics of this issue.
Absolutely, that's exactly what I'm trying to address, because the sociology is more in terms of the psychological needs of man, in terms of the that Maslow's hierarchy of where am I. So now the point is that, of course, we have lost a lot of grounds over time. But what we have used to compound our scenario, we talked about Udoji the other time. I spoke about the Muritala era. In the Obasanjo, if we even leave the military era, come to the Obasanjo, 1999, he increased wages. Civil servants started buying some small cars. But in time, before you knew it, inflation caught up with them. Everybody started to complain.
But
then they increased to 18,000. Then they increased to 30,000. Yaradua increased salaries as well.
Fashua,
so there's a problem. And that's why we need to be...
Factor also this conversation, this issue, the issues you are raising, into the responsibility of government in the Constitution. The primary responsibility of government is the security and welfare of its citizens. So if it is compelling for government to see to the welfare of its people, and government thinks the way to go is a living wage, because clearly the minimum wage is not seen to the welfare of the people, what then happens?
You're very correct. That's the Section 2 of the Nigerian Constitution, which lawyers say is unjusticiable. And we haven't been able to do anything about it, because the key role of government is to make the lives of their people better. Now, so what we can do is to say that going forward, we want to hold this present government to the highest of standard. And going forward, any government that will come after them will commit to some of these things. It's a great thing, though it's a bit idealistic, I must tell you. It's a bit idealistic given how do you fund it. For example, we complain about Nigeria having borrowed money, even though I personally believe that our balance sheet could still be leveraged for the things that we need. For example, the housing sector is something we can reposition. Given the fact that everything we need to build public houses is in this country, cement, paint, sand, what have you, roofing, even plastics to do the plumbing and all, can be done. So, but it takes a bold move, and that is the way we can actually reposition the entire economy.
Okay.
So it's a good thing. We'll be cautious, but I think it's something that's achievable over the medium to long term.
Okay, quick one. Let me ask Dr. Abubakar, your last words on this, perhaps for about 30 to 45 seconds. Where do you see this going? State governments have a huge role in this. How do you see them embracing this in the light of the fact that they themselves have their own financial crunches?
Yeah, thank you very much. Like I said earlier, corruption is one of the most serious problem barring us from achieving or alleviating poverty to the barest minimum. If government should stand and implement the social networks to the latter, corruption is not involved in it, and I'm sure these things will be resolved. You mustn't put too high salary, and again, other people who are not civil servants or are not working with government will find it very easy to live in the society. The inflation our economics is hammering on may not be there anymore. If like I told you, there were issues, the cash transfer, if the government calm down and make sure the suggestions or operation or policies are from down top, then I think we will have a very good solution to that. You can't just live in Abuja and be sending money through someone's account that perhaps is not a farmer. You send, he's not a businessman,
Well,
he's nobody.
that's another conversation altogether, Dr. Abubakar.
If you now think you have
Yes,
this
yes, thank you.
over us.
Let me ask Mr. Oyebi for your final words on this issue, perhaps also to speak to how the people can help government get this done, because whatever, even if it's a minimum wage increase, there will be increase in the markets. How do we manage that?
I think we've gotten to a stage where we now need a government that can tell us the truth, and also citizens that are also able to pay attention to the truth. The conversation today has shown us that you now need a multi-stakeholder approach to development. You can't do all of this in isolation. And all of the arguments that we have made for or against this living wage, they are all valid, and they are all concerns that must now be on the table. So at the state level, governments must now start thinking through what policies, they must be deliberate about the policies that they are coming up with and how they are budgeting for implementing these policies. We should now move away from the era of just buildings, to start thinking about those investments that can help us in addressing the pressure points that every citizen would have. And those pressure points are around feeding, shelter, transportation, and having a decent life. These are where the pressure points are. So the understanding of those would mean that government is also speaking to all stakeholders, including citizens, and carrying them along, letting them understand this is why we have this. For instance, you have health insurance in majority of the states, I will consciously assume, but I do know that of Lagos and Ibadan as well. How are we keying into that from the informal market or the informal sector to the formal? How are we keying into that in such a way that it helps us to reduce, out-of-pocket payment on healthcare? How do we also now start looking at transportation? Okay, someone has said governments don't need to start doing all these big buses that we probably won't get results. We all need to bring our heads together. We do appreciate the president for saying that he would consult and dialogue. That consultation and dialogue should not just be with the usual suspects. It has to be with the spectrum, from businesses to civil society, to government itself, to associations, to trade unions.
Okay, Mr.
We must all sit down together to find a way
we have
around
run
this.
completely out of time. Thank you very much for your contribution. And our thanks go to Dr. Mohammed Bashir Abubakar, Head Department of Sociology, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, who joined us via Zoom. Mr. Oluseyi Oyebisi, Executive Director, Nigeria Network of NGOs, who also joined us via Zoom, and Dr. Tokwe Fashua, an economist, a friend of the house, who joined us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you all very much for coming to join us today. You've made it clear to us that a living wage in Lagos is not necessarily a living wage in Benin or in Sokoto.
Maybe a living wage in Lagos would be a prosperity wage in somewhere else.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Sunrise will return in just a moment with another very interesting conversation. Do join us.
Thank you for staying with us. From that living wage conversation, let's talk about how the youth themselves can have a living wage. The focus on youth and innovation, from creating anti-theft programs through gaming to soil-less farming. You heard that before? Yes. Yes. Soil-less farming.
So you farm where?
On the walls of your house. Google it. Come on.
Okay.
You ain't so old.
Yeah, I saw some funny gardens in Singapore.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
You know. Yeah. So they call it hydroponics. So Nigerian youths are daily enhancing the quality of life and entrepreneurship that has a huge impact across Africa and the globe. The National Population Commission says about 64% of Nigeria's population is below the age of 25. This presents an opportunity for the country, not a burden, to harness the energy and creativity of its youth towards building a digital and innovative future. Let's have some conversation around this with Titi Adewusi, who is co-founder Niger Kids. He joins us along with Dr. Henrietta Owebuzie, Associate Professor Entrepreneurship at Lagos Business School, who is also Director, Business Innovation Accelerator of the Lagos Business School, as well as Mayowa Tijani, who is a journalist. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
So let me begin with you, Dr. Owebuzie. Are we focused right when we talk about youth innovation in Nigeria, or we are just papering over cracks?
So my take would be that we could focus a lot more, but the good news is that the youth are not waiting for us. Irrespective of government policies supporting them or not, they're going ahead and they're doing their thing. There's a parallel economy of young people making a lot of money from offering very useful solutions that are relevant to the public. And so people are willing to pay and they're making their money. Now, obviously, if we had government policy supporting them, we could make a lot more money and transform society a lot faster. In other words, accelerate the transformation of the country and the economy if we paid attention and supported them so that they are able to scale faster. And then we're also able to even give them the management training that's required to help them not just start, but remain sustainable and scale. You know, there's so many great ideas. I mean, in the last few months, weeks with the fuel hike prices, I've seen at least 3 different innovations by the youth to make, to help people survive. So I've seen somebody attach gas cylinders to the Kakemarua, the tricycles. I've seen another one change them to be electric powered. And I've seen a third one using urine power generator. I mean, no, not that they're trying to, they have made urine power generators. So that's turning waste to wealth and making it easier because, I mean, the inflation is rising, cost of living is rising and wages are not rising. Minimum wage is still 30,000, which is impossible to live on, okay? No matter where you live. So definitely there's a lot going on, which if supported with scaling and training, we could actually achieve national economic, in fact, socio-economic transformation.
Ms. Adewusi, Dr. Owebuzie has spoken about what young people are doing, urine-powered generator, gas-powered Kekemarua and all that. But what kind of support do they have so that they can take these things to greater heights, as in multiply them and make them enterprises that can give them incomes on which they can live?
Thank you very much for that question. There is support. Maybe the support is not as much as people want, but there is support, buckets of support, and sometimes people are also not aware of the supports that are available. So I'll give some examples. So we have a lot of innovation hubs. We have a lot of grants and funding at this innovation hub for different things. Some of them are for circular economy, some of them are in health, some of them are in education. We have even in states. So for instance, in Lagos State, for instance, we have large that's given to people to support a number of these innovations. If you go to the tech area, you have NICTA, that does a lot of these things. But sometimes a lot of these things are not known across board. There are also various foundations that are supporting innovation. Like I said, some of them are in healthcare. Some of them are also in mobility. Even before. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Go
okay. Even in mobility. and all that. There are a lot of support in terms of mobility, people converting. I know companies to mini refrigerated keke mawa, so it's really a bicycle, keke kind of thing. To help people move their products from the market to things. And I think when they are difficult, allows these things for us to look inward. It's not at the level it should be, but there are buckets of it, and we hope that more organizations will look at it. There are a lot of even finance doing hackathons, doing challenges where they're giving money and funds. But I think we need to pull all this together. I think we also need to have a place where people can go and find out about all. We still need the biggest support, which is really in terms of government. And the support government can give starts with policies, policies that ensures that these things can scale. So let me give an example. So if you look at things in education, we have a lot of innovation in education, but to be honest, if you don't have access to the devices and if you don't have access to the internet, then these innovations don't get around to you. So we talk about a lot of innovation in ed tech, but the average student, which most of them are in public schools, don't have access to technology. They're all learning without technology. So we need those kind of policies in government that ensures that, ICT is compulsory. Every school has, laptops. Every school has this. Policies that make, getting those things also easier. Internet access for things that are promoting education, if they need to be zero rated so people can access these things easier. It will begin to, kind of reduce the space, the gap that is there. So we do need a lot of government policies. We do need even the kind of, banks, the kind of loans that they can give. Most of this, we can't afford to take bank loans. So if government has some of these policies that would allow these organizations to do, even companies to say, okay, apart from using big companies, percentage of your business must be done with SMEs, especially SMEs that are promoting mobility, SMEs that are promoting, alternative energy sources, so that also helps on the customer and demand side for these businesses. And those are the kind of things that can help, innovation and also help the youth get work as well. Thank you.
Mr. Tijani, it's important for us to emphasize that youths are thriving in various industries, but we must zero in on what they're doing in the area of tech. Recall that startups such as Flutterwave and Paystack have been homegrown. They have been Nigerian. So let me take you back from there. It therefore becomes important that we pay attention to the education of these children, science and technology. How much do you think that we are investing in those subjects in schools these days so that we can churn out more youths who are going to do more magic for us in the area of tech?
Thank you very much. So the way it is in Nigeria today, we don't have as much investment as we should in those areas. Of course, we already are making some progress. There's a lot of focus on the fact that Nigerian youth need to get an education that sort of aligns with the needs of the 21st century. But I think that a lot more still needs to be done. We still need a lot more work to do around changing the curricula within our university, secondary school systems. We still need to get people familiar with tech as early as possible in their lives, as we have competition from around the world. But one thing that is on the upside is that a lot of Nigerian youths are learning all of these things by themselves outside the four walls of the school. So I know tons and tons of people who would study an extremely different, so somebody who study Christian religious studies, and he would train himself in software development. Before you know what's happening, he's selling talent, he's selling his skills to other parts of the world, making a lot of difference and making a lot of money. A lot of those differences, a lot of those outliers basically are making a difference across the spectrum of the nation. But it would make a lot of sense, it would make a lot of difference if we could scale that kind of thinking, that kind of thoughts to be able to reach a whole lot more people. So imagine that as early as junior secondary school 3, that students are being taught how to code, how to understand some of the computer languages that are important for the world today. So by the time they are getting out of school, SS3, they're already clear. If a child decides that he wants to go and study Christian religious studies or geography or whatever course they decide at SS3 level, we know that they are making those decisions based on their interests, not based on the availability of options. So I think that the way we should be thinking about our education is such that there needs to be a lot more skill to the kind of innovation that young people are bringing to education. We cannot, you know how they say that we cannot entrepreneur ourselves out of quote unquote bad government. It's the same way we cannot entrepreneur ourselves out of just out of this kind of educational challenges that we have in not just the country, but generally in Africa. Like we have the people, as we have said earlier, the numbers are there. Over the next 20 years, we would have like 123 million people who would be within that space. And so we need to make sure that we bring our education to the level where we are not just teaching the things that were relevant in the past, but things that will be relevant for the future.
Let me ask you, Dr. Onweguzie, in the light of these things, issues that we're raising, I want to ask you about the systems that should power these initiatives. You said something about scaling, about ensuring that policies of government, ministries, departments, and agencies of government are geared, focused, and channeled towards scaling up this innovative population that we have on our hands. How do you think that can be done? In the light of this fact that I'm sure you're aware of, many people in the civil service or public service are largely unwelcoming of innovation. This is a fact that I'm pretty sure you are aware of. Many of them are not very open to digitalization or digitization for the simple reason that some of them who do not have the digital skills might be out of jobs. But it is something that is waiting to happen, because in another 20 years from now, the people who are standing in the way of digitization in the ministries, departments, and agencies may not be there any longer. So because the much younger people would have taken their seats, the 20-year-old is 40, the 30-year-old is 50, the 15-year-old is 35, and they are all bosses and level 12, 13, 14, and all of that in these ministries, departments, and agencies. So in terms of soft infrastructure that needs to facilitate digitization, that can help scale at the rate at which I suspect that you are advocating, what needs to be done urgently, particularly from the state governments?
All right. So I personally believe in working with my reality, which is not cursing the darkness, and rather lighting a candle. I mean, what do I mean? We know the reality. It's just been recently announced that subsidy is going to be taken out of education. Now, in that context, you don't have expecting the same people who are out removing what was already significantly insufficient to be the ones who will bring about change. Okay? Many times we think that change will come from the office of the president or the office of the government. Many times all over the world, historically, we see that it is triggered by the office of the citizen, and government is then compelled into accountability. So what I would say is this: there's a lot the private sector can do, okay? We know the situation. Government has not left it ambiguous. They're taking away subsidy, not just from oil, from education. Before you know what is happening, it may even happen to the health sector, okay? And we're seeing, I mean, you just showed the advert of Duchess Hospital. That's a private sector triggered solution. You'll see there's Evercare on the island, obviously, where the problem with those is that it's only for the high-end people, okay? In India, they have ways of making the same facilities, services get to the low-end people in terms of scheduling. Now, coming back to education, The truth is, just like Titi Adewusi mentioned, okay, there are grants, okay, fortunately, there's a huge global impact investing market out there. What is impact investing? These investors are people, what are impact investors? These are people who are looking out to make an impact in different sectors beyond making returns, okay? One of the things I always tell people is that if you look at the richest people in the world, whether it's Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, or Elon Musk, these people didn't set out to make money. They set out to make a difference. And in making a difference that was a solution to everybody, people were willing to pay. And because everybody all over the world was willing to pay, they became very wealthy. One of the richest men in China is the guy who made education available to the poorest of the poor. Okay, apparently India is a place where that has the cheapest internet data. Okay, and what this guy did was make sure that the entire school curriculum was available on cheap, affordable mobile phones, so that no matter how remote, and then I think they worked on data somewhere on USSD. I know some young people who are doing this. All they need is support. Even if each phone is 100 naira, okay? If people are, even if they get the phones free of charge, if people are paying 100 or 200 naira daily to use that to educate their children, that will be collecting hundreds of millions daily because, 80% of Nigeria's population live below the poverty line, okay? So we need people in the private sector thinking like this. And I always tell people, can we just, for some time, not think about what can come from government because it just paralyzes us as to what we can do for ourselves and begin to see how we can get things done, okay? One person can make a lot of difference.
Dr. My apologies. The reason I brought that up was because you already said earlier, the first comment you made was that, look, the young people are not waiting for government.
Yes.
They are going on either way. I've had to start business from 0 naira myself, and a number of people would say the same thing. So,
exactly.
But the question that I'm asking is about the scaling that you talked about. You said, look, and then you have also, buttressed that by saying most times initiatives are triggered from the office of the citizen, and government is forced to line up. But you also said now that in some cases, it is the people who should be facilitating it that are causing the roadblocks due to one issue or the other, maybe bureaucracy, whatever it is. That's really the question that I'm asking, because there are quite a number of young people in those ministries, departments, and agencies themselves who have to answer to many, bosses who have analog mentality, who are not open to or welcoming of digitization. But whether we like it or not, digitization is the way to go. But
Absolutely.
These things can be speeded up from the office of the top guy who can ordinarily just issue a statement or what the executive order or whatever it is, just to answer the question of scaling up that you spoke about the other time. That's the question I'm asking.
Yes, so you're absolutely right. That's the ideal that we all want and we all wish was the case. But my point, however, is let's look at, obviously you've said it all. That's the way things should be. But the reality is they're not like that. So are we going to stop? Or are we going to just have a pity party? Or are we going to still find a way around it? So while I fully agree with what you have said, all I'm saying is let's have that resilience and determination to find our way around it. The truth about life is that whether you're doing good or bad, you always find opposition. And so my take is, let's not stop doing what we're doing. The individuals what we can do, for example, when we see young people who are doing these great things, okay, and we have connections to investors who are not just profit-driven, but also impact-driven, okay, we can make these introductions. I'll give you an example. So I teach entrepreneurship at the Lagos Business School. And I have a class of entrepreneurs. I have all kinds of levels of entrepreneurs, from the ones who are making billions, the ones who are making hundreds of millions, the ones who are making a few millions. And we make them work with industry leaders in their sectors, okay? And we just run a program now with the BOI where we after classroom training, we put them into apprenticeship with bigger people in their industry. Now, one of them who's in the energy sector has gone from just buying solar panels that are imported into the country and installing them to now manufacturing, trying to establish a manufacturing plant in Nigeria to make the solar panels in Nigeria. How did that happen? He came to LBS, okay? Apart from sending him for apprenticeship with a bigger company in the country, he was able to get someone who facilitated his going to India to a company that has making solar panels for 13 years. Now, they were so happy with him, they're ready to come back to Nigeria with him to train Nigerians to make solar panels and invest in 50% of the equipment costs. I think either Ogun State or Ekiti State government is also giving him land to site the plant. So these are the kinds of ways we can facilitate scaling of these young people who are doing amazing things. I absolutely love meeting them. In fact, once I finish from this interview, I'm going to the NSIA Innovation Program. What am I going to do there? Scout for great ideas, and from my network, see how I can make connections to help them scale. So in my own capacity, I do what I can to help the ones I meet. And I think that if all of us are doing this, one day it will all add up, and that transformation will happen irrespective of the person who is holding down, these things in one ministry or the other.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to happen.
Okay.
There's no stopping.
Okay. Mrs. Adeusi, let's look at the area of agric, one of Nigeria's most important sectors. What kind of initiatives or innovations are we seeing from young people in that sector? Because, like it or not, we've got to learn to feed ourselves.
Yeah, we're seeing quite a number, and it's actually it's exciting. You wouldn't have expected it. So let me just give some examples of what we're seeing. So we're seeing the ones that are helping farmers. So we are seeing more and more, agri-tech companies that help farmers to go on a platform where they would get immediate buyers and uptake for their products. Okay. So that's also reducing the loss. So they put a group of farmers together and say, we can have people that would uptake your items. So that is happening. And as that happens, they now start finding that they need to help do a bit more training for the farmers to help their products to be standardized, to help them with preservation and things like that. So if that's happened, there's a major as well. So once you're helping farmers with the uptake, that's also helping. There's another platform, also an edtech one, that's also giving them access to loans. So what they demand side, ensure they have the demand, and then also go that they need in terms of their operation expenses. There are also platforms that are now doing crowdfunding loans for some of this agri-tech. There are also ones helping them with distribution. I gave you the example of people that bicycle type keke mawas they're also refrigerated, so that the distribution is also being happened. So that's exciting. There are people that are also doing things in terms of data, being able to do more soil analysis for them using satellite, and that's where AI also comes in terms of agriculture, in terms of taking a lot of this data and being able to analyze it faster in terms of telling you what will be the weather, what will also be your yield, and things like that. But like everything, we need the skill. We need more and more people going to the grassroots to tell a lot of these farmers, that it's not just only in the public sector. Everybody that is not knowledgeable is initially wary of technology. But the moment they now see, one cycle of what it can do for them, then everybody gets excited. In the agri-tech space, and we're excited to see that. It's also helping with people in exportation. I'm proudly excited in Nigeria now when we see a lot of our shops abroad. So that also is helping with FX and things like that. Now, all this is being enabled by tech. So people have been able to export a lot of things outside of the country because they are platforms. So they themselves are not doing the exportation, but because they're providing their product into these agri-tech platforms, people all over the world can buy their products. Okay. And then luckily with logistics now being easier, it's easy to just, work with a logistic company and then also A lot is happening, and we are excited. I think it's just really to scale this more. Thank you. I hope you all heard me.
I'm also hoping that the young people are as excited as well. The challenge, for me, perhaps, and let me take this to Mr. Tijani. The challenge for me is, first of all, availability of information, authentic information, reliable and usable information that doesn't put the young man or young woman through too many layers of approvals or and disapprovals. So, Mr. Tijani, in terms of communicating the ideals and the opportunities inherent therein to the young people, for me, that's a challenge because a good number of people, of course, has been fairly, even though subtly underscored here, government trust in anything government or government related is at an all-time low. In fact, the trust account between government and the people is in the red, But at the same time, young people are not waiting. Yet the vulnerabilities are there. The challenges of not just getting the information, but using the information in a way that is profitable sustainably for the young man or young woman. It's a challenge because a good number of them may fall into wrong hands, get into scams and all those things, while they can do the same business authentically, fairly, truthfully, and still get fairness. Communicating these ideals to young people, what are the challenges you see and how do we cross them?
Okay, so generally, of course, all through time, it's clear that information is power. And of course, when young people have the right information, they make the right decisions for their lives and of course for the nation at large. When it comes to communication, there's quite a lot that is happening at once right now. But I'll probably start with what I may consider the biggest, which is misinformation. Misinformation, disinformation, all forms of information disorder sorts of robs young people of the opportunity to get the best out of numerous situations. And this is one of the things that personally I'm grateful for and I'm also scared about at the same time. And this is artificial intelligence. Now, to speak to young people, one of the things that we need to do is to be able to speak in their language, speak to them in the things, on the platforms they understand, in the languages they understand, with the things that they really care about. Now, the Youth Innovation Forum, there was a Youth Innovation Forum just this week in Lagos, and there were quite a number of young people at that event. Now, beyond the communication, beyond what was said, beyond what was shared within that room, we have seen other young people distill that information down to their peers, down to people within their network. So young people speaking to young people makes a lot of sense, and we've seen a lot of that happen. But we've also seen a lot of, in the bid to try to make the information sweeter or better or easier to communicate, then some misinformation gets to creep into the space. And that in itself becomes a problem with and for young people. So I believe that the way we are thinking about it, the kind of investments that we are seeing moving into communication of ideas, communication of ideals, highlighting young people who are making enormous progress within the system, sort of inspires other younger people to get into the space. So as we would see generally across the world, there's a lot more focus on young people. And of course, Africa, especially Nigeria, the continent where the young people are going to come from.
Well, Mr. Tijani, just a quick one. You pricked something. Let me just see what you can make of it within the next 30 seconds before we wrap up the program, and that is AI. Just recently, you may also be aware, some people wrote all of their assignments using ChatGPT, and guess what? The lecturer isn't any less smarter. So that raises the question of copyright, of the legal framework that the young people also need to be well informed about, still speaking about communication.
Right. So I'll take a little from what Dr. Uzi said earlier about the private sector driving some of these things. Fortunately for us now, the Gates Foundation they're running a project to work on some artificial intelligence program to deal with this kind of challenges. And one of the things that we are seeing, or one of the things that Bill Gates during his trip this particular week said, was that we have to make sure that the defense is always ahead of the attack. So the misinformation will come, but we have to start building systems and tools to make that to make us faster than what the problem would be.
So we
$7 billion
anticipate the challenge. We anticipate the challenge. That's what you're saying.
Yes, we anticipate the challenge and we deal with it. $7 billion is being committed across Africa to deal with some of these challenges by the foundation. And I believe that a lot of young Nigerians have applied to some of those in agriculture, health, artificial intelligence, all of that, to deal with the challenges that we are going to have as we go into the future.
Okay. Well, you've raised a number of issues. I think the conclusion one can draw from this conversation with you all is that government who is supposed to be leading the pack has to now play catch up, unfortunately. But then in order for them to not be too far behind, they better catch up quickly. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us this morning. Mayowa Tijani, who is a journalist, Dr. Henrietta Onwebuzie, Associate Professor, Entrepreneurship, as well as Director of Business Innovation Accelerator of the Lagos Business School. We've also had Ms. Titi Adeusi, who is co-founder, Niger Kids. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, you all. And please keep the focus on the young people because we need them more than they need us. So we're back right after this conversation to talk more about the next item on the agenda. Just stay with us. Interesting.
Thank you for staying with us. We've just finished talking about the focus on youths and innovation, which was the thrust of Mr. Gates' trip to Nigeria and Niger. And the main facilitator of that trip was the Aliko Dangote Foundation. So what Bill Gates came to do is very connected with the work that Aliko Dangote Foundation is doing. And it's my pleasure to welcome the MD and CEO of the foundation, Zuwaira Yusufu, who is going to tell us more about the impacts of the work that the Aliko Dangote Foundation is doing. I'm sure some of it is intertwined with the work that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is also doing. Good morning, Zuwaira. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
We haven't seen you in a long while.
I know.
You've been hiding?
I was going to come in today, but apparently traffic has been a little bit challenging, so this is the next best thing.
Well, I'm hoping that the next time we'll have you will probably be through one of those youth innovation that can just port you from where you are to this studio. But that's right for another future conversation.
Yeah.
Perhaps to also, start by asking you, what's the significance of the partnership? Of course, you've heard a little speak copiously about that, your partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. What exactly do you do together?
So thank you really very much for that question. We've been working with the Gates Foundation for over 10 years now. And Aliko and Bill Gates have become really good friends. And I think the thing that bonds them together is this connection around philanthropy, right? And they both really believe that to whom much is given, much is required. And so, they've been working together for the past 10 years. In the beginning, around polio eradication and routine immunization. How do we make sure that more of our children are immunized? How do we make sure that we have more, and better health outcomes for our children, that they have a chance to actually live? And so as we've, moved past polio, because wild polio, as we all know, is gone, we're still dealing with the after effects of the polio-derived, the vaccine-derived version, which is ending now because we have the appropriate vaccine. But really, it's around how do we improve primary care in general. And that includes maternal and child care, that includes malnutrition, that includes improving the state and the quality of our primary health care. So that's what we do together. A lot of the work that we've done in a really practical way has been around the 6 MOUs, the 6 states that we've signed MOUs with: Kano, Kaduna, Sokoto, Bauchi, Borno, Yobe. And what we've been doing in those states is really working hand in hand with us, the Gates Foundation, and the states. So the cost of immunizing the children is defined in a basket. And then once that cost is determined, the Gates Foundation puts in 35%, and Aliko Dangote Foundation, we put in 35%, and the state puts in the remaining 30%. And that goes on a sliding scale for 4 years, at the end of which the state is fully responsible for their own basket of immunization funds. So we did that, and different states are at different levels of moving off of that. For instance, in Kano, 100% of their immunization needs are taken up by them. And so that work has now led us to doing similar MOUs with Chad as a country, and just recently Niger. So you saw that we also went with Bill Gates to Niger to have a look at what we're doing there, to meet with the president, meet with the different decision makers, the traditional rulers, who are a huge part of our work. So we've been working together. It's around health. How do we really develop this? We set up a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, we went with 12 state governors, Nigerian state governors, to Seattle, spent a couple of days there to really explore this whole primary healthcare space. And at the end of that, we all signed a Seattle Declaration. And that Seattle Declaration is really a commitment to improving and funding healthcare in their state. And we put together a leadership challenge fund. And at the event where the new governors were inducted a couple of weeks ago in Abuja, we unveiled the winners. And Borno State, for instance, was the best state, best performing on every level, and they won a $1.2 million prize. And so this is how we've been, working together with the Gates Foundation. I think that's a good summary. Also, just really important for us all to understand the role of our traditional leaders. We've been able to get them to break down the barriers, the fears, and the issues that people have around getting their children immunized. And that's how we've also been able to take some of the women who have been trained during the polio work, going door to door in the communities to get the children vaccinated. We're using them now to go and help us identify the zero-dose children. Zero-dose means children who have not been immunized at all. And we still have some of those in Nigeria. And those women who we call CROWN, it's really a program called Community Reorientation Women's Network. And it's really about taking those trained women and using their skills to go back in the community and help us solve some of these problems. So they're helping us with zero-dose children. We just did a pilot with them in Bauchi, and they're also helping us with nutrition in Kano, where they're the ones who go in the houses door to door to identify the children. So that's a summary of what we've been doing with the Gates Foundation over the past few years.
So Zuwaira, I like it that you mentioned the immunization now, because I was going to ask you, how has that work been? Because I know that in many areas in Nigeria, a lot of women do not want their children immunized. They have all kinds of myths about immunization. So how easy has it been for you in the area of immunization working with these states?
Madam Alero, you've got it right. The biggest obstacle is that women aren't necessarily comfortable taking their children to get immunized. If they don't know what it's for, if they haven't understood the benefit of immunizing their children, they're not necessarily interested in doing it. And that's where the traditional rulers come in. What we know is that people listen to their traditional and religious leader more than they would listen to, say, a government official who lives outside of their community, right? That's just the fact.
Yeah.
And so when we get them on board and they're the ones sharing why this is important, why you should take your children to get immunized, why you should, listen to what the health workers are saying to you, when we have the traditional leaders helping us with that particular component, the results are dramatically different. We've been able to literally compare a before and after the intervention of the traditional rulers, and the results are amazing. Once the local emir, sultan, chef de village or chef de canton in Niger and in Chad speaks up and says, look, this is what we have to do, people really listen. And it's not just talking to the mothers, right? Because the fathers also have to be on board. They also have to believe that this is important for their children. And so the work of the traditional leaders and traditional rulers can just not be overstated. Without them, there's no progress.
Pardon my being selfish. Nigeria is a big country, and we have a lot of healthcare issues. And yet your foundation decides to nip into Niger and nip into Chad and spread thin what you're offering to us. We own Ali Dangote. He's a Nigerian. What are you doing in Niger and Chad?
No, I mean, I'm laughing because I've heard this before, but here are the facts. The areas that are the most at risk for us in Nigeria are some of these northern states. That's just where the data takes us, right? So this is not a regional play. These are just the facts. Where do we have the most unimmunized children in Nigeria is in the north. Okay. And what happens, because we have a huge border between Niger and Nigeria, like 1,500 kilometer border, whatever happens in Nigeria gets thrown into Niger. Yeah. Same with Chad. So all the polio cases and all the, not all the diseases, but most of the epidemics that we get in Niger, for instance, are coming from Nigeria. If you look at the map, you'll see that, for instance, Yobe and Borno have a huge border with Niger. Katsina has a big border with Niger. Sokoto has a big border with Niger. And so these borders are just, remember that our countries were just drawn up by a pencil stroke somewhere in 1885, yes? So people aren't really living as if, okay, we're from Nigeria, so we're a different country, and we're in Niger, we're a different country. A lot of the border towns are just the same people mixed in. Yeah. So people from Yobe will go to a health center in Niger, for instance, and get treatment, and vice versa. So whatever efforts we make in Nigeria, if we don't do the same immediately on the other side of the border, will just delay us getting rid of some of these diseases. So those are just the facts, Alira. It's not at all about, we're spreading ourselves thin. On the contrary, we're trying to save ourselves and making sure that whatever work we do here in Niger and in Nigeria and in Chad is making sure that our Nigerian population is also okay. Because there's no way that we can, we're only working here in Nigeria and we don't care about what's going on the other sides of the border, but the same people are going up and down the border and reinfecting everybody if we don't have this full immunization. That's why it is so important for every child to be immunized. And we cannot have zero-dose children who have not been immunized at all growing up and moving about, because all that does is create new pockets of disease that we are not expecting. I'll tell you one last thing about immunization. Every time we see an epidemic of something, it's because children aren't vaccinated, right? There cannot be a measles outbreak except that people are not immunized. So that's why immunization is important. And we have to make sure that we're doing the same thing around us so that we are all safe.
Well, very, very huge concerns that you have raised there. Please do not blame us for asking, Why are you going abroad when we still need you here? Meanwhile, still staying abroad, you've also had some intervention with Nigerian returnees from the war-torn Sudan. There's at least 2 countries between Nigeria and Sudan, but thankfully they are returnees. Not that you had to go all the way to Sudan. Tell us about that intervention with the Nigerian returnees from Sudan.
Okay, so we have the third component of what we do at Aliko Dangote Foundation is humanitarian assistance. So really, when the returnees were coming back, and there was all this worry and stress about bringing our people back, we thought and agreed that immediately people came back home to Nigeria, that we would help them. So we weren't involved in bringing people out of Sudan. It was the minute Nigerians landed in Nigeria, we were there in Abuja to help them. So from the first plane that landed until the last one a couple of weeks ago, we gave each returnee a backpack with all essential toiletries and 100,000 Naira cash grant to help them, go back to their village, go back to their town, have a little money on board. Because remember, people left with like the clothes on their back and maybe one piece of luggage. So they didn't have time to get ready to leave the Sudan. So we just wanted to make sure that when they came, there was a friendly face and something to support them when they came back. So we worked hand in hand with NEMA. We did the actual intervention ourselves. We bought the backpacks, bought the stuff that we put in the backpacks, blankets, soap, towels, etc., and then 100,000 Naira cash grant for each returnee.
Tell us about help me understand how you felt, particularly with that intervention. It's not the only one we've had. We've had Nigerians also return from Ukraine and a number of other situations like that. Tell us, how did you feel getting involved in that particular intervention? You've seen Nigerians return from a war-torn country like Sudan, like Ukraine, but speak to us about the one that's, your foundation had to intervene. How did you feel? How did it feel seeing those Nigerians in the situations that you just described?
So, of course, it was a heartbreaking situation for all of us, right? Just imagine being a student and you're just going to school studying, and then all of a sudden you have to flee. Or being a family and you're working there, and all of a sudden you have to leave. You have to leave everything, your bank accounts, your clothes, your house, everything, and just, run for your life. So it was heartbreaking just to know the hardship that people went through. What felt good to all of us in this intervention was being able to put a small little smile on their face when they came back. There was a lot of just disbelief. A lot of the reaction of the returnees was they were shocked. They didn't expect us to be there. They didn't know we were gonna, help them. They were just relieved to be back. So, they just kept asking, like, why are you doing this? Why are you helping us? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please say thank you to Aliko Dangote. We're so grateful. Thank you. Why do you care about us? And we're like, well, we care because you're our brothers and sisters, and all we want to do is, just extend a hand of friendship and just let you know that we care about you. So it felt good to be able to do something nice for, of course, people we don't know, but that we knew had gone through a very difficult time and had a not so clear, situation in front of them going forward. So I felt really good that we could help, that we could, provide some support and some relief to them.
Well, is that the kind of feedback you've also gotten from your work in the Niger Republic, Chad, and other interventions? What kind of feedback have you gotten? What kind of reactions have you gotten from that as well? Sometimes, I ask that question because sometimes, particularly in the case of polio, I think Alero mentioned that earlier, there is usually that pushback because people don't know what kind of intervention you're bringing, how it's going to affect them because of history and all those things. What kind of pushback or acceptance, feedback have you received with these interventions over the years?
So the feedback that we've gotten has been 100% thank you and well done and please do more. That's the feedback that we get. People trust Aliko Dangote because he's from here, right? When we go to Niger, he speaks Hausa. That's what, everybody in Niger speaks Hausa. So it's very easy and everybody knows about him in Africa. So they trust that he's there with good intent. I think that's the first thing that we're leading with, is people trust that he's coming with good intentions. The reception has been gratefulness because we've had, like in Chad and in Niger, outbreaks that have come from these zero-dose children. The problem for us in Nigeria is that some of these outbreaks trickle back into Nigeria then, and that's where it highlights that we have children who aren't immunized. And so Chad and Niger have been very, grateful and thankful and, really appreciative of our efforts. Of course, every time, people see Alhaji Aliko, they want more money, they want investments, they want...
Isn't that to be expected?
Me, I'm on the foundation side. We're working on health, education, and humanitarian. We're not doing business through the foundation. That's a different side of, Alhaji's life. But from the foundation side, it's really about helping specifically on health-related issues.
Well, still talking about helping, we know that you are also playing some role in the large-scale food fortification work in Nigeria. Tell us a little about that.
Okay. So if you can imagine, Alhaji Aliko wears two hats, right? As an industrialist, a business person, and as the chairman of our foundation. So on the business side, we have food businesses that are involved in fortification. So Dangote Sugar, NASCON, which is our salt and seasoning company, all have been fortifying forever, right? And I mean, from the beginning, from inception. And so his interest on fortification lies there, that his own companies are doing the right thing when it comes to fortifying foods. And on the foundation side, we care about fortification because we have a big program on nutrition. And what happens is if people are eating, we're eating less and less traditional food. We're eating more bread. We're eating more processed foods. So we have to make sure that the food that we're eating that's processed is also properly fortified with the right vitamins and minerals. And so these two sides of his interest, if you will, came together. And so together with Bill Gates, who is also very interested in fortification and macronutrients, they set up something called the Strengthening African Food Producers Program. So it's a program that is run by TechnoServe. And what it does is it challenges all the food producers in Nigeria to properly fortify the food that they make for the Nigerian people. So in this forum that we've been doing, that we set up in 2018, we have the Nigerian regulators, so NAFDAC, SON, FCCPC, that are there to make sure that, we're doing what is required, Ministry of Trade and Industry and the Ministry of Health. All of our meetings since 2018 have been chaired by the Vice President of the Republic. And really, it was to highlight to the manufacturers of food, the producers of food, how important their role is in the health of Nigerians. And so out of all that came out the Microfortification Index, where companies are ranked, is a self-regulated mechanism. And the results have been really impressive. I mean, 90% of fortification had been adhered to until pre-COVID. Now, COVID made it difficult because importing vitamin A had been reduced because, remember, everything was shut down, ports were shut down. A lot of the vitamin A doesn't survive being in the sun or being locked up for a long time. So, a lot of the investments that companies had made into fortifying had been lost because they couldn't, what they had bought, the vitamins they had bought and the premixes they had bought had lost their potency. So we had a bit of a dip with compliance, I would say, in the past year and a half, but then we're back up. And all the companies are committed. We have an award ceremony now, and the winners get, a trophy, bragging rights. And I think it's this self-regulated mechanism that people understand we need to do, because people are eating our food, and if it's not properly fortified, we're doing them a disservice. Now, NAFDAC doesn't necessarily have the capacity to go and check every single loaf of bread and every single, bag of sugar, but they do the regular checks. And we've also, part of this SAPPF program also helps to strengthen the capacity of NAFDAC to enforce the fortification work. But this is what we've been doing for the past few years, and the results have been amazing. The industry is doing great. NASCON is the only one. 100% of our salt is fortified, so we're like 100% perfect on that. The bouillon cubes, seasoning cubes are being fortified also. Sugar is fortified. Edible oil is fortified. Flour.
Okay.
Okay.
Zuera, are you there? Zuera?
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay, we can hear you.
We can hear you now. Now,
right.
Just before you go, in parenthesis, Bill Gates is doing a lot of his work with young people, as we saw in the course of the week. And you are a partner to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Are you involved in the work that they're doing in any way with young people?
No, we're not. So the partnership that we have with them is really around the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Equidomity Foundation. So Bill Gates as a person also has several different investment vehicles and several different interests that are not connected to his foundation. So he has something called Breakthrough Ventures. He has all kinds of work that he does and investments that he makes that are not connected to the foundation. So we don't work with him on that part. We're really working specifically on the foundation side.
Okay. Zuera Yusufu, MD, CEO, Aliko Dangote Foundation. Thank you very much for coming to bring us up to scratch regarding what the foundation has been doing. We hope that you will come again in a not too distant future to further brief us regarding the work that the foundation is doing.
I would be happy to. Thank you so much for having me.
And we wish you all the best, Zuera Yusufu. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sunrise will be right back in just a moment to talk about the health of your gut. See you.
So let's talk about gut health. It's not only would you how do you
gut.
Let's not waste time introducing this one. What is the gut health? Some would tell you, doctors will tell you that it's important to maintain a healthy digestive system or gut. That's just an idea. What's the full story? Let's welcome Bukola Agunbiade, who is a pharmacist and lifestyle doctor. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. We joked earlier, I don't know if you were in at the time, that if you add TER to gut, the answer is not going to sound nice in the ear.
Yeah.
Oh, even you are looking at it.
If you don't look after your gut, it will become like...
Don't say it. Don't say it. Gut with the TER. So help us understand, what does the gut itself, what does it mean? Because, the most that people know about gut is, I have a gut feeling. I feel it in my guts. Is it the same?
It's connected. It's connected, yes. The gut is basically the gastrointestinal tract and is directly connected to the brain. That's why we have gut feeling. That's why we have butterflies in our stomach.
No, I don't agree. I don't agree. Where does it start? Where does it end? You're saying it's connected to the brain.
The gastrointestinal tract starts from the mouth to the stomach, to the colons, then to the rectum. Ends in the rectum.
From here?
Yes, mouth to the rectum, yes.
It's a long trip.
Yes, it's a long trip, yes.
But it also has a connection. How does it connect with the brain?
It's connected to the brain via the vagus nerve. And is actually, in fact, the gut is called the second brain. Yes, because we have a lot of nerves around that area. Is connected to the brain directly.
That's why it is important that we look after it,
Yes.
right?
I'm asking her, is it like the
important.
Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, that if there is traffic, it's going to be a problem? Are you looking at that?
Please don't mention Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Please. The gut. Yes, tell us. So it's a long journey from your mouth to your rectum.
To the rectum, yes.
So how do you look after an organ that starts here and ends up here, making this journey through your entire body, more or less? Remove your legs.
I think it starts from the oral health. The oral dentisticians, they have one slogan. They always say, oral health, gateway to good health. It starts from the mouth. You have to keep a good oral hygiene, brush twice in a day, or make sure you gargle your mouth after some certain meals. Do scaling and polishing once in a year. Visit your dentist to do your dental checkups once in a year. Try and make sure you don't have issues at the oral health. Then it also has to do with stress. You need to reduce stress, because if you don't manage your stress, stress increases cortisol production, which will reduce the flow of blood and oxygen to the GIT. Reduces prostaglandins. Yes, to the GIT, the tract. It reduces the blood flow to this area, because you can't be running for lion and your body is doing digestion. It's not possible. The energy will go to your limbs to make sure you escape. So the blood flow that goes to the GIT will be reduced, which will reduce the prostaglandins, reduce the mucus production that protects the bowel. So stress is also an important factor that you need to look at. And then we also have one lifestyle of taking antibiotics indiscriminately in this part of the world. Like, oh, I have diarrhea, or I'm having running stomach. You don't even know if it's caused by an infection. The next thing you are looking for, Flagyl and tetracycline. I don't know who gave us that formula. But it's something that messes up the gut, because they are using antibiotics indiscriminately. So it kills the good bacteria, gives the bad bacteria a free day to live.
Is that all?
No, there are other things. There's also the age, there's also the food, reduce smoking, reduce drinking of alcohol, consumption of alcohol, and so many other things.
Okay, now the question I want to ask along that line, is how many organs are connected in the gut system, in the gastrointestinal tract that you've talked about? You've talked about the mouth,
the mouth,
and then you've talked about other things that we need to pay attention to. You didn't tell us about...
The esophagus is also part of it, but that's basically passage most times. Nothing really happens at the esophagus. It's just a passage.
How about the people who have this thing?
Goiter.
No. You usually have, I don't know the English word that you use, when something is paining you in your throat.
Tonsillitis.
Whatever that English
No,
word
that's another thing. That's an upper respiratory tract infection.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's another thing.
But it disturbs swallowing sometimes.
Yes, it disturbs swallowing, and of course, there could be some secretion of some unwanted chemicals at that part, which can affect whatever you're swallowing.
Okay.
Yes. And there's also the stomach, where the gastric acid is being produced.
Which is like the dustbin that's everything.
No, it's not the dustbin.
Okay.
That's the factory.
Oh, the factory.
Where the processing of the food takes place.
Okay.
This is where you have the gastric acid, which digests the food. Then along the colon, that is where you have the bacteria, the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. We actually, we have something we call the good gut health, which is when you have a balance between the good microbiomes and the bad microbiomes. So that is also very important. The two organisms are there, but depending on what you are eating, depending on what you expose yourself to, is what will determine which one takes precedence and is able to function.
Doc, you mentioned antibiotics. I've also heard the word probiotics. What are those?
Probiotics basically are the good bacteria. You have some products that are probiotics, that when you take them, the probiotics contain the good bacteria. So when you take them, you are increasing the population of the good bacteria.
Okay.
And reducing the chances of the bad ones.
Of the bad ones taking precedence.
Reducing your chance of requiring treatment with antibiotics.
With antibiotics, yes. Because when you have the bad microbiomes taking precedence, then of course you're exposing yourself to a lot of, your GIT becomes more permeable. It increases inflammation in your system and so many things, low immune response and all of that.
It sounds to me like you are covertly giving us a warning. Don't just go and start swallowing all the probiotics you can get.
No, definitely. Definitely.
Some people will hear that and say, probiotics is good for my health.
The best way to get probiotics is not just in a product. You can get it in the daily foods, the food we eat.
Okay.
We have some food that have probiotic.
Such as
our fufu.
Okay.
Yogurt.
Those are the natural ones.
Yes, those are the natural ones.
Fufu.
Fermented foods, yes.
Fufu is
Yogurt.
probiotic. No, wait, I'm coming. Fufu?
Yes.
Is it the smelly one or the non-smelly one? Okay, don't answer that question.
I think that has to do with the production.
Don't answer that one because when you mention fufu...
As long as it is fufu. If you like, take the smelly one. If you like, take the one that doesn't smell.
Okay, so what role then do vegetables play in this probiotic or microbiotics space?
The vegetables and fruits are fibers.
Okay.
Fibers are the fuel for the good microbiomes.
Okay.
They are the fuel that would encourage the good bacteria to exist, to be able to function. So fibers are very important in our diet. Okay. They are the fuel for the good bacteria.
Let's talk about that stomach. Okay, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. How do we risk the gut health? You don't really keep much in the mouth, right?
Yes.
You don't keep much, if anything at all, in the esophagus. The receptacle is the stomach,
yes,
then the small intestine, then the large intestines, right? I don't know, are those all the bus stops that this food has to go through?
Yes, those are basically the main bus stops.
Okay, so tell us how we take care of those bus stops.
The first thing is to reduce stress. Reduce stress as much as you can.
This word again.
Yes.
Stress.
Madam.
Yes, it's a basic thing.
Madam, let me give you 3 cities. Lagos, New York, Bombay, in India, add Shanghai. Okay, let's stay in Nigeria. Port Harcourt, Abuja, Kano City. Those areas that I have mentioned, the synonym for each one of them is stress. How do you reduce stress in a stressful city?
You have stress coping mechanisms. I think we discussed it the last time I was here.
Yes, we did.
No, let's remember, let's remember ourselves again. Because this morning, those people, I mean, she was telling us about a colleague who wanted to go to Ibadan from Lagos, spend the first 2 hours to get to Kara.
Yeah.
And that's just her. This morning, we would have spent 4. If not for divine intervention.
Well, I think that has been a major question from even the last time I spoke about it. A lot of people reached out to me. And I think the solution is what sinks a ship, or the simple way to say it is what sinks a ship is not the water it floats on, it's the water that seeps into the ship. So it's not about the stressful situation you are going through. It is how well you are in charge of your mind that you don't react to the stress.
How you are coping with it, how you react.
You cope well with it. You are in traffic, you don't need to fret, though you are getting late, but you can listen to music, you can make yourself happy.
Even the way you are smiling.
You can't listen to music when it's 8:30, your live program is at 9
o'clock,
and you are still at the toll gate.
But the truth
There's
is,
no way you can listen to music
fly
and relax.
You cannot fly. So the best you can do is sipping your water, accept it, and enjoy the ride.
Okay. So that's the first thing, to
Yes.
manage stress. But then there are other things. The
Yes.
food is in the stomach.
The fiber your consumption is really, really important. Okay. Increase your fiber intake.
Please give us examples of this fiber. Some people believe that pounded yam is fiber.
Yeah, pounded yam has a bit of fiber if it's the pounded yam, not the processed yam flour.
Don't let them come after you.
That's why I said processed. I'm not mentioning any brand. Processed yam flour. Some of these fibers will have been tampered with. So if it's the pounded yam, yes, that has a bit of fiber. But when you're taking your pounded yam, that's why, yes, it has a bit. Okay. That's why when you're taking your pounded yam, most times you take it with vegetables.
Not ogbono like me, I like. Okay, so, but how do you clean the gut? How do you clean it in the event that that becomes necessary?
I don't think you really need to clean the gut. Okay. There are a lot of products out there claiming to clean the gut and all of that. I don't think it's necessary. It's a self-cleaning mechanism. It's a self-cleaning organ on its own. Just increase your fiber intake. Increase the intake of fruits and vegetables, and it will clean itself.
Okay, that's from the stomach.
Yes.
How about the small intestine and large intestine?
Anything that enters the stomach would.
Calm down now. There are some people, after eating whatever, for days, they are unable to turn the bowel. Days.
Yes.
What happens?
And people like that, they have reduced GIT motility.
All this English stuff.
It's just movements, GIT movements. Their metabolism is low, so the motility is low. But one thing you can be sure of is if you increase your fiber intake, it would speed up the GIT motility. And of course, they will be able to visit the loo more frequently.
Now, some people have halitosis, and sometimes doctors say it's from the gut. Why does a smelly mouth come from the gut?
The mouth is connected to the gut. It's part of the gut.
Yeah, so what causes it? What makes the mouth smell?
Is that
arising from the gut?
Is that
what has happened to that gut?
Halitosis from the gut has to do with the bad bacteria. If you have a very high population of the bad microbiome, then of course it will result into smell that will spill out through the mouth, definitely.
So what can one do about it?
Just increase your fiber intake.
Because it is not nice for you to open your mouth to speak and people are moving back, you know.
Just increase your fiber intake, then maybe the person needs to, sometimes you might need to investigate further. You might need to do some, sometimes we do checks. We do, what do we call it? I've forgotten. There's a diagnosis. When I remember, I will tell you. We do it to check the population of these different microbiome. Okay, stool analysis, yes. Stool analysis to check the population of the microbiomes. So you know what antibiotics to use or what probiotic or what prebiotic to use to balance this gut microbiome.
Please,
to
you said
this one.
Prebiotic?
Yes, we have prebiotics, we have probiotics.
What's the difference? Okay, we'll come to that another day.
Anti, pro, pre.
So let's talk about that, smell again. You've talked about the one that comes from the mouth. How about flatulence? If you don't know the meaning of flatulence, please Google it as spelt. Flatulence. I'm not going to use my mouth to say it in Yoruba. Please go ahead.
Iso?
How does... Well, what she said. How does it factor into this whole gut thing?
It's the same thing. They are just the mouth and whatever, the flatulence coming out of the rectum, they are just exit points. It's the same thing. It shows us what is happening in between the tracts. So the same thing that is causing the halitosis is the same thing that can cause really smelly flatulence.
So essentially you are saying that a really smelly, no, because there is good smell, there is bad smell. Especially
there's no good.
There's no good smelly, okay. So essentially you are saying that flatulence, the smell of the flatulence is a sign
yes,
of the gut health.
Of the gut health, yes.
Let me say that again. Okay, say
Some
it
don't
yourself.
smell.
Exactly.
Yes.
So when there's no smell, what does that indicate?
It means the person is fine, or maybe there's just an entrapment of gas.
Oh, okay.
Maybe from the way you are eating. Some people eat with their mouth open, just chew and all of that, so they are able to take in a lot of gas or something. Okay. So maybe the gas is just finding a way to get out. But some are from the high population of the bad microbiome. Okay. So just manifesting in the flatulence.
So those are the ones that really spoil the air in the room. Now, in that case, what does your viewer do who has a really bad flatulence, which according to you is a sign of bad gut health?
Reduce stress, drink a lot of water, increase fiber intake. If the person smokes or takes alcohol, reduce all of those.
What's the consequence of bad gut health?
Wow. Like I said, the gut is connected to the brain.
The connection the person is having mental disorder.
It can affect, of course, it will lead to digestive issues. The person can have constipation, can have diarrhea, can have gas, entrapment, and all of that. The immunity will be low. Oh. Yes, because the gut is where the food we eat is converted into nutrients that the body makes use of. So when we have issues along that area, that means the absorption of nutrients will be low.
Does it have anything to do with the liver, the kidney, and all those things?
Of course, when nutrients are not properly absorbed, those ones, all the organs will not get the nutrients they need to function. So it affects almost everything. In fact, it leads to anxiety, it leads to depression, it leads to...
Depression?
Yes. A bad gut health leads to depression, leads to anxiety. The immunity is low. You have inflammatory responses, which can spiral into so many things. Obesity increases your chances of cardiovascular health issues, increases your chances of diabetes, and a whole lot.
My God.
Now you know that you have a very powerful engine in your body. Unfortunately, I don't know how you can... Well, her name, you'll find it on the screen. You can Google the name, and if you want, you might find a way to reach her, after this interview, because I'm pretty sure that a number of people are curious. We really just have to thank you for, as Alera would say, coming to spoil our morning as usual. Bukola Agumbiade is a pharmacist and lifestyle doctor. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So start cleaning your gut. We'll be right back after now with the home stretch. Stay with us.
That has made you sober. Thank you for staying with us this far. We're now into the home stretch, of course.
I feel it in my guts.
My favorite part of the program.
I feel it in my guts that we're in the home stretch.
Do you know anybody called Olufemi Ademola Fagade? I'm sure you said no.
No. They won't say no. You just either Google it or be scratching the head.
Who is that? Omo Baba.
Number one. Fat boy.
Finest of them all.
I actually called out his real names. Omo Baba, that's his stage name. He's actually Olufemi Ademola Fagade. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good to see you again. Looking radiant as ever. Yes, now, let's say that.
You don't want her to blush in public.
Show fine, go. Show pretty. Show pretty, go. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Baba is a comedian, a comic actor, a musician, and a businessman. Now tell her, which business do you do, please?
What services do you need? That's what Nigeria has taught.
General merchants.
What services do you need? I'll provide it. Any field. Any field. That's why it's called networking. There's somebody that can do what you need, that I know, that you don't know.
So somebody said that he was a general merchant and he could even supply girls if you wanted girls.
Yes, I have a friend that owns a club. So do you want a club party? I call him up, he links with you. If there's money, you give me my percentage for sure. I mean, that's how I think things will work now. Collaboration is the new crude oil. So if you are lagging
new crude oil?
Yes. You have to collaborate with everybody.
So you are into any business I want to do?
Just name it. I know somebody that is into it. Yes. Oh, we need a compare, you know. It's a sense of humor. We need about 4 people. Okay, I will say I'll do one. Okay, I have 2 here already, plus another one. Maybe I'll call Ali Baba. That's 4.
House don't fool.
That's the business, you know. I mean, that's the new thing in town.
Since you got into comedy, it would seem like you either stopped doing music the way you used to, or it evolved.
Well, I was actually doing Afrobeat gospel.
Okay.
Afrobeat in a gospel world. I had a 14-man band, and we play in churches, you know. These guys, some of them are not even Christians, but they are talented. So they follow me to churches and all that. And you have some of them that are, you know, church boys. Then after every ministration performance, we're about to go, they will come and meet me for transport. And me, I came for free for the work of God. So then we know those that will give you transportation or money for ministration.
For the boys.
Yes, when you hear, God bless you, let's go to the church office. Something's coming. But when you hear, God bless, yeah. You are blessed.
No,
You are blessed.
Come back. Start afresh. Because I think maybe I lost it like someone did.
You see, so when you hear God bless you, can we see? Yes. Can we see you at the church office? You are going to get envelope.
Okay.
The boys will smile.
Okay.
But when you hear, oh, my brother, that was a good one. You are blessed.
Blessed.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
Just know that they will be dragging you, or Godfather. The drummer will call you, keyboardist will call you, bassist will call you. But in between doing those, while they are setting up, I need to engage the crowd. So I crack 1 or 2 jokes, tell a story, and people start laughing, you know. And somebody will come and meet you and say, oh, your band is large. Can we just have only you do that 5-minute, 3-minute stuff you just did now for our event in our church, in our school, and all that? So that gave back to stand-up.
And that's how the band began to...
Well, it now reflected in my performances as a stand-up comedian.
Okay.
So now I'm now infusing music into my jokes. So I don't like to be boxed to say I'm a music comedian. I have ideas of music, I know music, and I can make people laugh. So I can infuse both together, plus acting. I was doing one-man drama. When I always call my guys, where are you now? We are late, let's go for this. Hey, I'm on my way. My mommy sent me kerosene. Only me will take their roles. So I started doing one-man drama. So standing as a comedian, you are acting, I can sing, add to my jokes, and tells the joke. So 3 in 1, collaboration.
Baba, you studied industrial relations and what's the other
Personnel
thing?
management.
Personnel management. How did you end up doing this?
And when Nigeria starts studying you, you know, when you are studying in school, Nigeria will be studying you. It's you. So this is what you think you want to do. Okay, we are studying you. So when Nigeria starts studying you, and this on a serious note, this is another way of taking the burden of the government. I see a lot of people always clamoring, saying there's no job out there, there's no job out there. As a student, you don't just earn money from your parents. You earn money by yourself while in school. So I do tell people that are working as well, you're working in an organization. I mean, you can say, oh, I got this face cap. I have 10 of it, if you like it. Once you hear comment about what you're putting on, what you're wearing, and you know where you got it from, yes, I can get the same for you at X amount, 5% increment. If you can pay it, if you are my good friend, 1%, 2%.
Businessman.
You don't have to pay me now. But you know when everybody is collecting their salary, end of the month. I mean, that's just it. That's business. So I didn't wait for the government to give me employment. I started, you know, way younger, doing what I love to do best. Thank God for my parents, my brothers, Pastor Fagade. Today is his birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Your father is a pastor.
My dad is a deacon, an elder in church. So my brother is a pastor.
Oh, Marshall.
I am a comedian. I saw my father holding the mic, anchoring events in church. He didn't get paid for it.
You didn't say happy birthday to your brother again?
Yes, Pastor Fagade, thank you for being a great mentor. Thank you for all you've done for me, Kolade Fagade. May God continue to bless you. And today is Ali Baba's birthday too.
Oh, that
man is a great man.
I trained him.
Hallelujah, many happy returns.
So happy birthday, Ali Baba. Happy birthday, Pastor Kolade.
I trained him, you know, just say hello to him for me,
yeah. I know you people together, so we know we train.
You mentioned your parents now.
Yes, please.
Comedy in the days of Jacob, Papa Lulu, Aderukboko was not the way it is now. The days of Ali Baba, to beg your pardon, Baba Salah, Baba Mero, and the rest of them. Fast forward to Aluwe, Alawa and Shiki, Aluwe, Baba, Ogabelo, and all of those things. Comedy has since moved. But it was about those times that you started. Tell us how it was for you at the beginning, how, if at all, it was received, and what's the transition been?
So for me, it was not really kumbadom. Like I said, I have a very supportive family. All they care about, this thing that you are doing, hope the family name will not be tarnished, and you will go to school. That's all.
And when you start doing it, hope you can feed yourself and pay your house rent.
That's the thing, you know. But like I said, Ali Baba played a great role. You know, from the generations you mentioned, and immediately it got to him, he made it a business. Not just making people laugh, it is stand-up comedy. They are doing their own in movies and all that, you know. Kudos to Gbenga Adeboye as well. A lot of people have been part of this movement. And this is, sometimes it's very sad when you see people when they don't know how it all started. If you are part of something, you need to know the past, you need to know where it is, and where it will definitely go, or where it will end. So Ali Baba changed it. He turned it to a business.
But there was some business element to it before Ali Baba. The John Chukwus of this world, the MC Basket Smarts of this world.
John Chukwu did the same, but Ali Baba made it corporate.
Okay.
More corporate. And, you know, as a 1990 thereabout, it was charging 1 million. I mean, for 10 minutes, for 15 minutes. The broadcasters, Sonny Rabo, and the rest were the MCs. So when we have the educated guys stepped in and started doing stand-up comedy, so like now I can anchor and I can still do stand-up. So it depends on your event. It's you that will not tell me, oh, for this event, tone down humor. We just did. Once I get the brief, I know what to do. You know, I know what to say, where to say, and how to say it. Okay. This is not just me jumping the gun. This is me growing. Okay. This is me watching people do.
Now, you said something about Ali Baba playing a role.
Yes.
I'm going somewhere with that. There are those who have the skill, who need mentoring, but listening is a problem. Now, how was it for you allowing, agreeing, accepting the mentoring that you got from, I'm pretty sure it's not just Ali Baba that gave that to you?
So what we get to hear more now is I'm self-made. There's no self-made. Somebody somewhere has played a role. Somebody somewhere has been positioned to get you into position. So you don't just get into position. If the number 10 is if the midfielder does not give you a true pass, you can't score as a striker. If the midfielder does not get it from the defender, or the goalkeeper to the defender, the ball will not get to the next place. So there's somebody somewhere that has been part of your growth that will change your orientation, mentality about a lot of things. That's why mentorship is good. You don't have to know your mentor's house. You don't have to stay with them. You can read about them. You can watch them. And when you have the opportunity to meet them, milk what you can milk, but don't be a pest. So in that position, I've got elderly ones at home. My sister is a renowned journalist as well, you know, so I watch them, the way they do their stuff and all that. So when you mention, I'm doing this, or they see you doing this, they can correct you on it. That's the first step. From home, from your sitting room. Once you make mistake, there should be somebody in the house that can tell you, oh, no, that's not how it's done. I think this is how it's done. Yes. And then you accept and you move forward. So the moment you say, nobody can correct me, I know it all. Well, it's just a matter of time. Like they say in Yoruba, it's just a matter of time. So they are overnight success. There's nothing bad about that. In the days of social media, now you just discover that, oh, you are the rave. There's nothing bad. Then go and start learning well, because you need to sustain it. Because with time will tell whereby the boys will be separated from the men.
Okay. You are more known now for stand-up comedy, for comparing events and all, right?
Yeah.
Tell us the engineering that goes into constructing a joke.
So,
don't give us your, what's that thing that they say? Don't give us your trade secrets.
No, I mean, so it's nothing to hide. I mean, a success is someone that teach people. When you share knowledge, you are reminding of yourself of what you've learned.
And learning by listening again.
And learning by listening again, because others to have their opinion that you can pick. So for me, Nigeria is funny. You don't get Nigeria is so funny. Okay, we had COVID. The fuel is 500. Fuel is 500 now. From how much? So the reactions are there on the road already. The state started saying civil servants should start working from home. We'll come to office 3 times a week, work from home twice a week. Let that happen in Lagos. Where will last man work? Let's start with that. So now imagine that I'm in my house. I parked in front of my gate. Somebody with uniform at the top, boxers, now came to clamp my car. I said, what's going on? He said, I'm working from home. Imagine where a conductor will work. When you say work from home, conductor. Will he now sit down at home? Anyway, maybe he will start doing IT. Comedians.
Work from home.
Comedians can work from home. Actually.
How about firefighter?
Yeah, we will be fighting the fire in his house. There might be fire on the mountain. You know? So I mean, that's the trail. You see people, you think they are rappers now. Somebody is just coming towards you, bouncing. You say, in your head, man, this guy can rap. This guy, by the time he's passing you, he's lamenting. School fees, house rent. Yeah. He's just talking to himself. And you think it's rap. See, there's joke everywhere. So for me, I get a topic, I can milk it. I write the first line, the first funny part that I think came to me. We just spoke about working from home. Now, there are so many things that can join that. That will take me a stretch of about 10 minutes. That's one joke. So once I get that funny part, I don't rush to tell those jokes. I'll sit down again and think, if I'm stressed about thinking about it and it's not coming, I'll leave it there. It might take another 6 months. Something will trigger and you will remember what you have written first. Then you go back and add it to it. I have a joke like that. It's long. It's about 5 minutes set. And the first line was just the first line. It took me another 6 months to say, wait, what if it's this company that called me? Will I now mention the name of this particular brand? and I changed it. And for a stand-up comedian, where you are meant to be, whether you're young, whether you're old, it's just like footballers that keep going to the training pitch. You have to be at the comedy clubs. And that is where I mastered the trick. Comedy clubs, where you have the younger one coming to see someone that's made it doing the same thing you want to do. There's a connect. Now you're sitting down, you're looking at Basketman, you're sitting down, you're looking at Benga Adeyinka, and you have not met them before, you know. And by the way, Benga Adeyinka was the first person that told me where I would be auditioned so that I can perform at Night of 1,000 Laughs. After performing everywhere for almost 5 years, I've not played the big league. So will I say I just made it? It was contributing. It contributed to my talent, to my success. Ali Baba was the first guy that introduced me on Night of 1,000 Laughs stage, like a superstar. And he has not met me before. I will not forget those ones. You know, he contributed to my talent. And when I finished, he said, oh, you have it. You can add it. You can add this. You can add this. Now there are some jokes that I think for myself, and these jokes are funny, but I don't see myself cracking them.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Why?
I have my beliefs. I have things that I can't say by myself that I decided to never to say on stage.
So you give such jokes out?
That I know that this guy, he will say it, and I will call you and give it to you. And that's fine. That's fine by me, because you didn't steal it. And a lot of people are stealing. Plagiarism is the order of the day.
Okay. So there's plagiarism and then there's copyright.
Yes.
There's plagiarism, but then there's copyright. Is there a way to copyright jokes?
Okay, so here's the thing now. The culture will always play its role in it. Here's a guy that you are seeing, trying to come up with this kind of support I got. And I'm seeing a young man trying to do the same thing. Then I now say to him that, oh, because you stole my joke that time, I have it registered. So I'm taking you to court. With the advent of social media now, what do you think people will tell me?
Well, they will probably tell you to take him to court.
So we've had comedians that have slapped comedians backstage. Yeah? Yes. It's not every news that will be breaking.
Not all you.
It's not all the news that you get to hear. So we've had comedians walk up to comedians and say, no, it's not. And some younger colleagues complain of senior colleagues, doing their jokes. So I had 1 or 2 complaints about that, and I said, hey, young man, listen. So one thing, that means your joke is very funny. But this person to pick on it. I'm not saying it's right, but you know what? Keep walking. You are being recognized now. So keep working. We can. Okay, when you are saying that, what about our jokes that have been turned to skits? 70-80%.
Give me an example.
A lot. A lot. This table, I will scatter everywhere now. I'll just break this table. A lot. I mean, so that's why comedy club is very important. That's why I always appreciate everybody that has been part of the growth of comedy clubs in Nigeria.
Okay, so tell you seems you have one.
Yes, it's called On Not Your Tie at the Comedy Zone. On Not Your Tie with Thomas Baba at the Comedy Zone. The Comedy Zone is at the zone in Bagada where you have corporate outfits come for their events, product launch, and do everything corporate, the package you're event for. And that space is the audience that I'm targeting. I'm targeting people that are working, not those that will go back home and go and do makeup and come out again to come and relax. No, bring the stress from work. You can call me a doctor. You can call me an honorable. You can call me a pastor, because we are doing the job of the government as well. So you bring the stress from work, come and relax, laugh.
Distress them.
Yes, at the zone, at the comedy zone. It's at Bagada,
When is this?
It's every last Friday. We're having one next week. Kelly Black is one of the guests. Pronounces. We've had loads of comedians. Ali Baba, Benga Adeyinka. We've had Ibube. We have the young. You have the first, second, third, fourth generation of comedians. That's what I try to do. I merge everyone together. Let's have fun. Okay. Basketman has his own. D1 has a comedy club, SK has a comedy club. You know, every comedian is now finding it interesting to say, there must be a place that I have that people can come and watch me weekly.
Let's not just
monthly.
be...
For a fee?
There are some weekly, there are some monthly.
For a fee?
For a fee, yes. Some, for mine is strictly by invitation.
Okay.
You have to be a captain of industry, you have to be a top executive.
Yeah,
for me to come.
Okay.
I've done Bugwero before.
Okay.
Okay, Bogwero. Our guest has been Olufemi Ademola Fagade. Well, you all know him as
Omo Baba.
Omo Baba. Fine boy. Check him out. Check him out. Check him out.
Tough. You know,
Fine boy,
let
no
the
pimples.
ugly breathe.
Let the
ugly breathe. Let the ugly breathe. I'm no longer in that category anymore.
Time to go before this guy who extended this program to 20 minutes.
Just start reading magic.
That's another topic of another joke that he's just doing.
Yes, sir.
Let the
ugly breathe.
Don't go there
I'll
yet.
frustrate them with my handsomeness.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
So, thank you for staying with us today, this beautiful, wet Saturday. I'll see you again next time. I am Alero Idu.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. You can the way she ended the program with that sigh, is already thinking about the journey. Bye for now.